Hey, GLP-1 Plus SideZ community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things. Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus SideZ Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus SideZ Podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus SideZ Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus SideZ Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster. Confidence higher. Price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
If you did have diabetes and your doctor prescribed you Ozempic, then you're just paying €1.50 for it a month. And that's covered by the HSE, which is the Health Service Executive, and people with diabetes would have a long-term illness book. So whatever medications that they need for their diabetes, they would pretty much get for free, no matter what your income was or anything. So that's really good. And then I went and started getting my Ozempic from the north of Ireland, from a chemist up there, and it was posted down to me. It was a little bit less expensive, but then Mounjaro came to Ireland there a couple of weeks ago, and Dr. Crotty actually wanted to ask you this: are people being prescribed Mounjaro on the long-term illness book now, or is it just Ozempic? It's private prescription only, is it?
Mounjaro is only private prescription. It's not available under long-term illness.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So in Ireland, for Mounjaro, for the smallest dose, which is the 2.5 milligram, the feedback I've been getting is anywhere between €300 and €420 was the most feedback that I got. And in the north, you can get it for £150 sterling, which is, I think, maybe €170 or something like that. So, yeah, it's gone wild over here. But I feel bad saying that because you guys are, crippled.
It's kind of bandit country around the place. Like, people can get access to these medications in lots of different ways. Unfortunately, so again, and this is where I suppose it nearly comes back to the idea of weight loss versus obesity care. And weight loss is short-term goal-directed dieting to be thin, because we think if we're thin, we'll be happy. Whereas obesity care is treating a chronic disease long-term to improve health. So the goals are different. But like you can go online, you can find a pharmacy who, you answer 5 questions, you take a photograph of you on a scales. Interestingly, they don't look for a photograph of how tall you are, just you on scales, which again, kind of
crazy.
Get into the bias and the stigma of that. And then next thing, a prescription arrives to your door. But like, that's not medical care. Like a prescription is not medical care unless it's accompanied by an understanding how it works, why it works, how to navigate side effects, the benefits, the risks, the costs, how you should take it. Then the challenge is you will have people accessing it, using it short term like a diet, stopping it, and long term probably damaging their health. Whereas when it's prescribed appropriately for the right person, then it's different. Here we have a kind of a 2-tiered system here. We have publicly funded healthcare, almost like kind of Medicare or something like that, for those whose income is below a certain level, where your medications, your doctor's visits, your hospital care is free of charge if your income is below a certain point. But effectively no obesity medication is covered under that system. So those people who get everything else, covered because their income is lower, would have to still pay for Ozempic or whatever medication. And there isn't any insurance they can claim it back. There isn't any co-pays. There isn't any vouchers or systems or kind of short-term kind of things like we might have in the States or in Canada. And then you have people who are kind of private payers who might have health insurance, which covers hospital and general practice. But again, they don't cover the medication. And those people, again, are paying out of pocket. So pretty much everybody is paying out of pocket for these medications. And let's say something like Ozempic, which is licensed for diabetes, is cheaper because it's a diabetes medication. So you shouldn't have to pay as much for diabetes medication because that's a real medical problem. Whereas, I think, I don't know who I heard talking about in Canada for like medication, for obesity, has an extra bit thrown on top because, well, she'll pay for it because,
you're desperate.
For, that bias and stigma. So,
they break that up here, so we have like wegovy and Ozempic here. Ozempic's like $900. Wegovy's $1,400 a month, US. It's
and even the zepbound versus Mounjaro and
zepbound and Mounjaro, they're pretty close. Pretty close in price. Here, I don't think they could have gotten away with that because we were all watching. They got away with it before.
True.
Yeah, I think they did a bit. I think they did a bit in Canada, I believe, but maybe kind of not as much. But so essentially, and we saw in the UK recently there was a decision made for tirzepatide that they would limit the availability of it on the public system because essentially at the prices of these medications they couldn't afford to pay for them for all the people, and it's not cost efficient at the current prices of the medication for the government to pay for them unless you have very significant medical complications. And it's actually hard to show cost effectiveness for these medications. But again, perhaps some of the pharma companies don't really care because they'll have people queuing up to pay for them.
Anyway,
But all of these things contribute to these medications maybe being used shorter term, being used inappropriately. And, obviously I'm biased. I run a kind of multidisciplinary clinic and people come to us for kind of rounded care, but like you will have people saying well, one of the biggest factors is price, and they'll go to where they can get the medication cheapest from the cheapest provider. That might be a doctor who doesn't particularly have an interest but will do a prescription. It might be a prescribing pharmacist, maybe somebody who doesn't have the same understanding of things, doesn't kind of go through the same assessment, doesn't know how to frame response and treatment and stabilization or plateau, again, to understand these kind of concepts. But people feel, well, that's getting it the cheapest, and maybe they have to do that because of their circumstances, but is it the best thing for their health? You could debate.
And the worrying part is the people that really, really, really don't need it, like people just being able to go online and to get it and have a 3-minute consultation, like some 17 or 18-year-old girl that has an eating disorder, or a boy that has an eating disorder, or somebody that really doesn't need it at all. It's too easy. It's really. And what do you think of that, Dr. Crotty?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. It is easy to get it in certain ways, and yet then somebody who might be going to talk to their GP for various different reasons kind of finds it hard to access it. So, people are hitting a brick wall on one side, they might be getting it easily on another side if they pay more or if they kind of, go a different route. But the challenge from my perspective is unless it is accompanied by, like, you give smart people enough information, they'll make an educated, informed decision. But people need the information to make a decision.
Yes.
And again, like I when I see somebody, I couldn't give a flying tuppence if they start on a medication or not. My job is to give them as much information as possible for them to make a decision about the right treatment for them at that moment in their life. And that might be a nutrition and lifestyle intervention. It might be bariatric surgery. It might be medication. It might be, thanks for the chat, that was really interesting, and now I won't blame myself anymore for weight, but I don't want medication. And so again, my job is not to say yes or no. It is to say, here's the information. I could never dream to understand the shit that people are dealing with in their life and in their health. And it's not for me to kind of say, well, you deserve it and you don't. It's to say, this is what appropriate use is. This is how you probably will experience it. This is what's going to happen. And and a lot of time we're breadcrumbing, kind of saying, look, most people would say this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, and they'll come back and say, oh yeah, that thing you said happens, it did happen. And also, this is how I would advise, navigating if you have a side effect. This is how we look at nutrition. This is how we look at different things. Because if you give people enough information, they'll be well able to do it. And I suppose we're seeing a huge the concept of these medications is actually not as taboo or controversial in some of the media outlets here now as it was. So what they're doing now is they're kind of focusing on, oh my God, they're giving teenagers from the age of 12 these medications, shock horror, because it's not shocking for an adult to take these anymore. So now they're giving them to teenagers, clutch your pearls and burn the crosses type thing.
Burn them at the stake.
Exactly. And then on the other side, then it's a case of, if there is somebody having complications, like these are medications, there is side effects, there is negatives, there is people who will have adverse outcomes. And I would hope if we educate people about how to navigate the kind of the journey, there will be less. And that's doctors and kind of patients. But like you'd see a lot of these things being blown up,
Yeah, absolutely. So they run with it. Yeah. Go ahead, Belinda.
And see, Dr. Crotty, if you had somebody come into your surgery with you and they wanted to have a chat and you let them know what the options were and they decided, you know what, I think this GLP-1 medication is going to be for me, what would you tell them, or what advice would you give them? What would their day look like on a GLP-1 medication, a typical day, or is there even a typical day? And maybe talk about the side effects and stuff like that for a moment.
Yeah, so again, it depends on the person. There's no point me saying, hi, Belinda, this is what you have to do, because that mightn't fit your life. It mightn't fit, if I tell you to eat avocados and prawns and you're allergic to prawns and you can't abide avocados, it's not really going to work for you. Giving people meal plans and stuff like that, like for me, that's not how I approach things. So again, part of the assessment is, where is your health at? How does, and my biggest question, and I probably apologize, I probably said all these things the last time I was on, but my biggest question
It's a while ago.
The biggest question is, do you feel that excess weight has an impact on your life and on your health? Yeah. And if so, how? And let's say somebody kind of names me and say, well, some people I meet, it might affect them medically, metabolically. Other people, it's their mechanical health. Other people, it's their psychosocial health. Some people, it's future health. Are any of those affected for you? Because then we have identified what is the goal of treatment. If somebody has hypertension, prediabetes, and arthritis, I'm not treating a number on a scales. I'm treating that person. So that's what we're treating. We're treating them to improve their hypertension, their prediabetes, and their osteoarthritis, to improve their health and quality of life. And it's not about a percentage of weight loss. It's not about getting to a certain target or goal weight, because that's rubbish, because we can't do that, because we don't know how an individual is going to respond. So anyway, so that's how kind of I would target treatment is, we're treating you because of this, and that's what we're aiming to improve. And then, if we go through different options, and then really for me, most people I meet are very clued in on nutrition. Most people I meet know about moving their body and sleep and stress.
Right.
And the challenge is either because of the biology and their environment, it's difficult to engage in those things, or maybe I'm engaging in all those things a lot, and that's why I'm healthy in certain ways, but maybe that's not an effective intervention to manage my weight, because not everybody will respond weight-wise. So if we say, okay, well, you're doing all that good stuff, and we're going to keep going with that, because this is not one or the other. This is both. This is how we think about medications. And we'll start with a kind of a low dose of medications, and we'll kind of titrate. But for me, it's helping people understand common side effects I would talk about would be nausea, heartburn, and diarrhea or constipation. Most people, nausea and heartburn are going to be there towards the start. Starting with a low enough dose and slow titration are huge. If somebody's having side effects, I either have increased the dose too quickly for that person, or we haven't talked about the patterns of eating and food choices that might align. So it's a case of, if you go all day without eating, you're going to feel like shit. If you are eating small and often, you will feel better. If you are prioritizing protein and fiber, then you're going to feel better, and that's good fuel for your body. If you are taking high-fat foods, very processed foods, and that could be good fats, bad fats, you're going to get urgency, diarrhea, burping, kind of feel unwell. If you eat your main meal beyond 7 p.m. and go to bed at a kind of 11 or 12, you're going to wake up with vicious heartburn and eggy sulfur burps. If you are taking lots of coffee, fizzy drinks, spicy foods, alcohol, that's going to affect your stomach as well. So I have a little kind of graphic that I give people as far as these different topics, and I'm not telling them what they should do, because that's not what it's about. It's basically, this is what most people will find, and then you apply that. And if you start, it's easier to navigate that on a lower dose than on a higher dose. So if we learn to navigate on a lower dose, then gradually increase it, and only increase the dose if somebody's not having side effects. This idea of people having to put the head down and plow on, which people do, unfortunately, that's a no-go.
So quickly as well.
Yeah, like so people will just get on with it, and they'll suffer the side effects. The next thing they're coming back, and you say, well, like that shouldn't happen. If that happens, you need to talk to us. You need to come back, because we need to change the plan. And we need to refocus on nutrition. We need to look at the dose of medication and reduce it or stop it. Or maybe this isn't the right medication for you. But people will put up with misery, because that's what they have been doing for years and years, trying to manage their weight.
And they'll just push on through. But when you're talking about the food and the side effects and that, it's such a hard learning curve. Like you will learn pretty quickly what you can and cannot tolerate anymore, and it's going to be very different to what you were able to eat previously and tolerate, I think, as well.
And again, like some people will have little to no side effects. 1 in 4 people will have more significant kind of gastrointestinal issues. But it's a case of, I suppose, forewarned is forearmed. If people go in knowing, well, this is what I need to focus on. And again, all of that nutrition, that's for health and to reduce side effects. That's not for weight loss.
Right.
Because again, particularly at starting medications, I couldn't give a sugar about weight loss. That's not the goal. This is me wanting to treat your subconscious brain to change hunger, fullness, desire for food, and perhaps that thermostat, that set point to bring it down. So weight loss is a side effect of treating the chronic disease of obesity. It's treating the subconscious brain. Weight loss is a side effect of that. It's not the goal of that. And for that reason, shifting the focus, people will come back at the follow-up, and no matter how much you talk to people, they will come back and I'll say, how are you getting on? And the first thing they tell me is how much weight they've lost. And I will say, okay, let's just park that to the side. Not that I don't care, we're going to come back to it, but why has your weight changed? Is it because you're sick all day long and you can't eat because of side effects? Or is it because of appetite regulation, reduction in food noise, reduction in desire for certain foods, and you're able to live your life? Because that's what we want. But before, let's get to that. Let's start on side effects. Are you having side effects? That is the most important number one thing. And telling people, I'm going to assume you're absolutely fine unless I hear from you. So if you're not fine, you need to talk to me. Because again, like as a practitioner, I can't be going around knocking on people's doors. I can't be calling people up every week to say, and again, I suppose, obviously I have a very particular way of thinking about this, but like if I'm treating somebody for high blood pressure, I'll prescribe them a low dose of blood pressure medication saying, here's the side effects, here's the benefits, off with you. I'm not walking down the street after you, kind of checking on you every 5 minutes. I'm not bringing you back to see you every week. I'm not seeing you every, I'm probably not seeing you every month. I'm seeing you back after a while, but you're old enough and bold enough, then you're going to come back to me if you're having a problem. And that's how we treat hypertension. That's how we treat cholesterol. That's how we treat asthma. And again, obviously I'm very biased, but like people don't pay a subscription service to treat their hypertension, to treat their diabetes, but yet now engage with our program and pay our kind of monthly fee to kind of, get treatment for obesity. Like, again, like there's bias and stigma in that, because, well, obviously you need that treatment because you don't know how to eat properly. We need to teach you how to eat properly. Of course you know how to eat properly. Your biology is just not the way it needs to be. So again, it's a case of what we're doing is just essentially what we do for any other chronic disease, and trusting that people are intelligent people
enough to
come back. But it's also, I suppose, at every juncture you are combating diet culture. This should not feel like a diet. And I suppose the other thing as a practitioner that you become very adept at, and yet it is still challenging, is managing people's expectations. That
huge.
I can guarantee you're not going to lose as much weight as quickly as you want to. It's not going to be like when you go on a diet and lose stupid amounts of weight very quickly in a very unhealthy way, and that weight comes back straight away. This is a marathon, not a sprint. We're talking the next 40 years here, hopefully, not the next kind of 6 months. And then sorry.
Go ahead, Belinda.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just say response to treatment is so I don't talk about success or failure, because people cannot influence how things are going to change. Some people, because of the particular type of obesity they have, they're going to respond to X treatment. Other people need Y type of treatment. And it's not the same for everybody. And like we talk about obesity is probably not one disease. It's probably, dozens of different phenotypes, genotypes, kind of subtypes, and each will respond to a different treatment. And there are some people for whom medications are just not going to work, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because it's not addressing the biology that they're doing. We will have, and I would see lots of husbands and wives and sisters and brothers and different things, and people don't always respond the same way, even if they share genetics. But like, you'll have people looking at their pals saying, that prick lost, 50 kilos in a week just giving up.
I say that every day about Paddy.
And yet I'm fighting hammer and tongs here and things are not changing. Well, it's because like we all have a different deck of cards, but we're trying to play the same game. And it's not within our control. So it's
it's not. It's just not, is it? Yeah.
So true. And like, go ahead, Belinda. Go ahead.
And every single body responds differently to this medication. But unfortunately, people coming into and starting this journey have the expectation of what they're seeing sensationalized on social media.
Absolutely.
And it's soul crushing for them then when they come on this journey, and it just literally takes time, and you have to live with it every day, and you have to take the medication every week, and you have to do your best, but
I think the whole idea of like a goal weight is sort of ridiculous, because, and I never thought that before, but what I've learned is exactly what he's saying, is that that's sort of where you end up. That's that weight. You probably don't have a lot of control over what that is.
None.
This treatment at this time, like you eat the things, you do the things, and then it gets where it gets. And it's but over here, for sure, like the algorithm, I would say, favors thinness, it favors whiteness, like it depending on the where you're looking. And when that happens, a lot of people are seeing people who have lost 150 and 200 pounds, and they are now in a thin body, a skinny body. And people think, oh, if I take this, I'll be that. And then when they get there and they lose, say like me and Kat, 70 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever it is, but we're not in skinny bodies. No, we are in much smaller bodies, much healthier bodies, but we are not skinny. And I think that when people get there, they're like, I'm a piece of crap. That's what they tell themselves. I am lazy. I haven't done enough.
I still can't do it with medication.
Yeah. And we're seeing now, because we started, Mounjaro, I didn't start Mounjaro then, but I started GLP-1 in summer. So Kat started Mounjaro summer 2022 as well. So we're all kind of seeing people get to this level, and there's a lot of judgment online of people like, you're not exercising enough, you're not eating less, you're not eating the right foods, you're not counting your macros. Like, it is judgmental for why you're not at the goal weight. It's crazy. Yeah,
they still want to try to help you or whatnot. Dr. Crotty, you mentioned different types of obesity. Is that being studied now? Like, are we having will we eventually see later on down the line different?
Oh yeah, so this will all be very individualized. Like at the moment, we have no blood tests, we have no questionnaire to predict who's going to respond to what treatment. So it's very much, suck it and see, hit and hope. You try something, you titrate it, you try and support people with side effects, and then you see if they respond. And I suppose we talk about response because it's not within our control. So it's not success or failure, it's response. And it's interesting, I might meet somebody. Oh,
that was great.
You want to come in there again? So
make that short.
It's response. So again, going back to once I've spoken to somebody, how is your life and health affected? Well, that's where I'm looking for the response. And if somebody, let's say hypothetically, I meet somebody and their blood pressure is improved, inflammation, their joints, their mobility, their mechanical health, they don't have food noise going on, they've got more brain space. If all of that is improved, that person is responding very well to treatment, irrespective of what a number on the scale says.
Yeah.
Now, you also can't argue that with larger percentage of weight loss, somebody might be more likely to see some of those health benefits. But what's driving it is the health gain, not the weight loss. And what we see is let's say I start somebody on a medication. We're going to do the up dose titration. Some people will respond at low doses. Some people will need higher doses. But within about 3 months, we'll know if somebody is having a response. Is there a change in appetite, hunger, fullness? Is there a change happening in health? And if there is, then probably the next 3 to 6 months, they're going to see things happening probably quicker. And at that stage, when they're in that dynamic response phase, I'm a brilliant doctor. This is the greatest medication ever.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Row Body Program. If you've been following along on my GLP-1 journey, you know that managing weight and metabolic health is a huge part of what I advocate for. Row's approach combines GLP-1 medications and then personalized support, giving you a tailored solution to help you take control of your health. And it's more than just weight loss. It's about finding the balance and the support that you need for long-term sustainable change. If you're ready to take the step, you can go over to row.co/plus sides with a Z and see how Row can support your journey. That's row.co/plus sides. I'll link it here in the show notes. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
I'm not hungry. I'm not thinking about food. That food noise is gone. Hallelujah. Honeymoon period. And then we get to kind of 6 to 9 to 12 months. And things start slowing, and I say, oh, this is a bit weird. This is slowing down, and my weight is not changing, and now it's starting to reach a stable place, and I'm not doing anything different. And lo and behold, I'm feeling a bit hungrier. I'm a bit less satisfied than I was, and my thoughts about food and some of the food noise is coming back. And it scares the shit out of people because they think, well, my appetite is coming back and I've stopped losing weight. This medication is not working. And they'll come back to me and they'll say, the medication is not working, doc. And I'll say, what do you mean? They say, well, I'm hungrier again and I've stopped losing weight. I say, well, you've now moved beyond the dynamic response phase. Now you're into the maintenance or stabilization phase. And I'm a bit of a word police. I don't like the word plateau because it just has so much negative connotation. So now you're at a stable place. And you couldn't influence where that was going to be. That's going to be where, it's going to vary depending on the medication, the treatment, and all the shit that has happened to you over the course of your life, and every diet and your genetics and lots of other stuff will decide where it's going to be. And things might continue to change, but just slower. But most people, by probably 9 to 12 months, they are where they're going to be. And to explain to people, it is utterly normal to feel appetite returning. Because that's what happens when we're beyond the dynamic phase in the maintenance phase. But despite appetite coming back a degree, your weight does not go back up. It will maintain at this level. Because it scares people when appetites go up because they think weight's going to go, because that's natural. Because they think we're just treating their appetite. We're not treating their appetite, we're treating the set point to bring it down. So their set point is now lower with the medication. So what I talk to people is, we've put our foot on the thermostat and we pushed it down with the medication. Now my foot needs to stay on that thermostat, and that medication at that dose is going to keep you here. And it's probably not going to be where you want to be. It may not be where you need to be, but it's where you're going to be. And there is a degree of, I don't know which of them is it.
Get used to it.
Well, it's close your eyes, like, oh, the steering wheel, because that's where we're headed for. You know, you can't influence it. Now, people can always continue to focus on nutrition, continue to focus on movement. They can improve their health further despite weight not changing. They can see changes in body composition, distribution of weight. They can see lots of changes. But it's a case of advising people before they've even started on this medication, your appetite is going to come back, and don't let it freak you out. And again, my colleague in our clinic, Professor Carl LaRue, again, he did a podcast recently, and this talking about this idea, and it is incredibly difficult to separate the concept of appetite and weight.
And
appetite and weight, they're related, but they're not the same thing. And again, health is a totally different thing. Again, you know, it's another concept. But you know, people get scared.
They're all just equally important, aren't they?
Yeah. So they'll come back and say, you know, it's not working. I say, well, is your weight where it was at the start? Is your health where it was? And say, no. It's okay. Well, it is working. It's just doing something different now than it was doing in the first 3 to 6 months. So the goalposts have moved, and that's what's freaking you out. But you know, this is what will happen. And let's say you switch to a medication that is more effective for you, or a higher dose, then there will be a further dynamic phase. Great doctor again, brilliant medication, happy days. Oh shit, here's another stable phase. So in the same way as kind of, you know, when weight is increasing, it's often in this incremental over time. On the way down, it's going to be the same with different medications and different treatments. And you know, for me, the ongoing benefit of a treatment is not just weight loss. It is maintaining. It's, you know, shit happens in life. And my weight is not going up the way it did before. You know, I take my eyes off the road. I can actually smell the roses and enjoy life, knowing that if I stay on the medication, I would be here. But nobody is ever where they want to be. And again, it's this idea that, you know, so let's say somebody comes to see me and they are, I don't know, let's say 400 pounds. And I say, you know, with this medication, you may lose 40 to 60 pounds. And they'll say, God, Jesus, I'd love that. Oh, God, Christ, that'd be brilliant. And they come back and they might be down 60 pounds and go, this is better, and that's better, and this is better. But, you know, I want to be lower. And that's what happens. And that's human nature. And but we need to acknowledge that, but also say, like, you can't make this stuff work more. You know, it's gotten from there to there because that's what this medication does for you at this dose. And if and when a different treatment becomes available. So this idea of breaking the plateau, breaking the stall, like people can, so let's say I'm here and I'm stable on a medication. I can get my weight lower, but I'm going to steal from sustainability. I'm going to steal from health, and I'm going to steal from my ability to enjoy life. Because I'll restrict, I will deprive, I will lean back towards those dieting things I've done in the past, and I probably will come back down. But when that becomes unsustainable, it's probably easier to do it on a medication, but when it becomes unsustainable, I'll just come back up to where I was in the medication before.
Where you're supposed to be.
And and even supposed to be, I suppose.
I love that.
You know, it's where you're going to
where your body wants to be.
And I suppose that makes it sound like my body is plotting against me. It's not a conscious thing,
right?
But you know, again, for me, it's a case of, I don't know, is anybody on, let's say, a statin, a cholesterol medication? Let's say you go into your doc and your cholesterol is 7, okay, and you go on a atorvastatin at a dose of 20 milligrams, and your cholesterol goes from 7 to 5. Your doc couldn't tell you how much it was going to come down for you. They'll recheck it and they'll see, well, shit, if it's 5 isn't low enough for you because you've got a family history, well, they'll put you onto 40 milligrams, 60 milligrams, 80 milligrams to get it down lower. And you know you can't influence that. You can continue to look at your diet and your nutrition and everything else. But ultimately, the medication is going to do what it's going to do biologically. You can't influence that. But like I have patients who delayed starting on a medication because they were so freaked out about the fact that it might not work for them. So they kind of said, well, sure, I failed everything else there is.
It's pretty common though.
It's pretty common.
It's really common.
But it's to kind of understand, okay, well, with this medication, it's 50-50 whether people will get a significant response or not. And it's not within your control. It's not predictable. With this other medication, it might be 80-20 whether somebody gets a response. With surgery, it might be 90-10. So all you can say to people is, look, these are the stats. But I suppose there is a temptation to nearly apologize for the medications that they're not doing for people what people want them to do. But we can't, there isn't the right medication for everyone. We can't invent a new treatment. If I am gone from here to here and my health is improving, but I'm not where I want to be, okay, well, maybe I need to kind of ride that train until something. And that's and that's why a focus on numbers for many of us is never going to get us to where we want to be. But again, we're breaking the habits of a lifetime.
Yeah. And I think we're all us three, we're all in the same boat, aren't we? Where that kind of, we're on that kind of level.
I mean, I gained a little since hormone replacement therapy and menopause. Like, I mean, not much. Like, I probably would have gained way more. Like, it's been 10 pounds.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I know, and I will tell you, I actually think that, and I'm sure that you can explain the science behind this, but if I get really busy and I'm not focusing on my nutrition and mindful eating and stuff, I actually gain weight, and I'm gaining weight because I'm not eating. Like, I know that sounds weird, but like, I forget to eat. Like, I'll go all day, and then I'm like, oh man, I gotta get some food in me, because like my caveman's turned off, and I find that my body somehow, I don't know, I gain weight. It's utterly bizarre.
Starts swelling.
It's pretty cool. My caveman just hangs out with me all day. It's all good.
Day.
I got a buddy.
The cat always talks about how she has a wall. She'll be eating with the caveman, hungry, ready to do all the things, but then she hits this wall. I was more like her in the beginning, where I had like a lot of aversion, wegovy specifically, and then when I switched to Mounjaro, I could eat more and lose more, and I lost a good bit more on Mounjaro, and then I've just kind of been hanging out for like a year. And so I'm in like maintenance. But if you see other influencers that are in maintenance, right? A lot of them are like in
the skinny body.
Skinny body. But I'm trying to tell people, I promise you, that is not reality. What most people
that's what we just touched on. Yeah.
You also don't know how people have gotten to where they're getting to.
Yeah.
So again, I'm back to my original point. Somebody comes back to me and they tell me how much weight they've lost. Let's park that, because how has it happened? Like, you will see some people losing stupid amounts of weight very quickly because they are very, very sick. And again, it is perverse what people will put up with when they're losing weight. It is dangerous what people will put up with when they're losing weight. And if I'm losing weight because of a side effect, and that side effect disappears, well, my weight is going to come back up.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, or maybe I'll get down and then I'll plateau very quickly, because actually that's where I was supposed to be longer term, but it just should have been longer and more healthful getting there.
Everybody's different. Everyone looks different.
And also as well, while you are on these medications, like, I've plateaued on a lower dose than I'm even on now. Just kind of leveled out, like maybe pound down here or pound down there or whatever. But even though my weight hasn't changed, my physique has changed so much, to the point where I've had to go and buy new clothes again. But my weight hasn't really shifted, which I'm absolutely thrilled
I have that
about.
Too. I would love to understand.
It's so weird.
So skinny, and I'm like, I was the exact same weight last time I saw you, and I am usually a smaller size, but I'm the same. They're like, there's no way that's true. There's no way. I'm like,
because we can't stop focusing on the scales, the inanimate object on the ground that's telling us, how we're supposed to feel. But Dr. Crotty, you've just made me completely redundant. Everything you've just said, I had questions about everything. So I feel like I've been fired.
It's a case of, and the problem is that, people will see me for the first time, and you're trying to get all this information across to them, but it's just so much information.
There is
trying to take on board, and it's overwhelming. So it's a case of, in clinic, we come back to the same concepts over and over again, and like, I'm like a broken record. I just said the same stuff over and over again. People need to hear the same stuff over and over and over again.
We do,
but then it's about kind of like individualizing it, because, like I said, it's the goal of this is to improve health and well-being. I mightn't be where I want to be, but like, people, if they are able to kind of step outside and take the 100-foot view of things, kind of say, okay, well, this is a response, this is a response, this is a benefit. My life has changed this way, this way, this way. Maybe I was expecting it to change this way, this way, this way, and it hasn't. But okay, on balance, do the benefits outweigh the negatives? And then let's just keep trucking until something else comes along, and hopefully it'll be more affordable, and hopefully it'll be made available in Ireland before the US, and hopefully kind of all these things will happen. But it, again, it comes back to we applaud and we exalt the people who have a strong response, because that's what we have always done with weight and diet culture.
Yes.
And it's interesting, it's the same issues, we've just transposed them onto medication. But we don't understand, we don't know what's going on in that person's life. We don't know how the rest of their health is. We don't know how their health is, full stop. So again, it's just, we need to be careful looking over the fence. And they're probably looking back at us going, Jesus, that fecker is, he's great in this way and that way. Like we all look in the mirror and we see the same thing, and we might be bigger, we might be smaller, but we're the same person. So it's just, I suppose what's it Carol says, we're not making people thin and we're not making people happy. We're treating a medical condition, and we're hopefully improving their health. We're hopefully improving their quality of life and long-term health and mobility. But it's about kind of why are we doing it? We're doing it so people can play with their kids, play with their grandkids, so they can grow older, so they can be active, so they can not be in pain, so that they can, have less medical issues to deal with. It's not to fit into a certain size.
All of the above,
and we're not supposed to be all the same size.
True. But I think that comes with age as well, doesn't it? Yeah, your priorities change.
It does. But I suppose I would have patients in their 80s who are still weighing themselves every day, are still on a diet, who have been, their whole mood for the day is set up by what the scale says in the morning.
Yeah. Right. Which is what Belinda was saying in the
I have patients
years,
in their early 20s, similar. And it's a case of, I suppose, sometimes with lived experience, people who have been through the bush forwards and backwards and kind of have fallen into every hole, again, I suppose they might have a different perspective on it. And people do get more of a health perspective as we get older. But I suppose the challenge is, absolutely, I might want to improve my health. I also might want to be thin. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with being thin, but that's just not what these treatments are for. These treatments are for a health issue. A side effect might be making somebody's body smaller, but that's not the goal of the treatment. The goal of the treatment is to make people healthier.
It's definitely, I think, I will tell you, I've heard people say to me before when, I think we've talked, so in our country, we have compound as an option if from certain FDA regulated pharmacies, if there's shortage, right? And that's like a big thing that's going on here in our country is that's going away, or there's litigation that's probably going away, which means we're going to be seeing a lot more things, unfortunately, with people not understanding these things, right? Which is why we have our podcast. And they're going to be going to black market where they're getting this from not a doctor without a prescription, like they're mixing it up in their kitchen. So it's been a blessing that compound opened up because it opened up access, but it's a curse because people have taken advantage of that and are now going to take advantage of people and give them things like this. So we've had a tremendous, and we're going to see more as compound goes away, in this country of that happening. But I do really think that it's because of the way we're thinking about it. People are so sick and so desperate because they're sick, and then on top of it, we have the issues that you guys were mentioning too, where someone could, like you said, stand on a scale, take a picture, and maybe that person's already thin and has an eating disorder. We definitely have that going on here too. So it's the same kind of problem, but doesn't it kind of all come back to the culture that we all live in, where again, not just that thinness seems to be very much associated with good. And fatness, if you will, seems to be associated with bad. And so it's very moral, right? If you are thin, and then it's if that starts changing and people start getting thin, then I've seen a creator one time make a video that she thinks the reason that people get upset about Ozempic being used is the idea around sort of the privilege of always being thin, people who were born that way, right? And two, how will we be able to tell morally who's moral if the fat people are thin? Right? How are we know
who's worthy and who's not?
Who's worthy and who's not? Yes. Yeah. I think it seems to come back to that. And I know there were some things that when you met the first time, Dr. Crotty, that you were sort of talking about around bias and diet culture. I'm wondering, is this anything that you've seen, or do you feel that, because it just seems like it runs so deep, it's been so long, it's so hard to unwind this stuff.
And it's not going away.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse.
Yeah, I've lots of thoughts, but it's a case of many people who don't live with excess weight or obesity, who are lean, often are instilled with this belief that that's because they have willpower, motivation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're knowledgeable and they're strong and they're good. And they feel that they are positive personality traits they have, and that's why that they're thin. Another person, who has excess weight or obesity isn't as good as them from a willpower motivation point of view.
Yeah.
And now we're coming saying, oh, no. All those things you thought that were good things about yourself, that's not the case. This is biology, plain and simple. And it's biology meeting a toxic environment that we live in. And some people in that environment will not have a challenge. Other people will have a challenge. But we're essentially telling those people this is biology, not all that good stuff you thought about yourself. And it is a slight to their personality, to their very essence and being, and they get a visceral response. How dare you? I work really hard to maintain this body, and you're taking a shortcut, a quick fix.
That's the killer for them, isn't it? Yeah,
living with or not. And actually, some of the most toxic stuff I have seen is, let's say, somebody who has lost weight naturally, through misery and diet and exercise, who kind of is absolutely disgusted by somebody taking medication to do the same thing. So it's people who've never had a challenge. You're insulting their essentially essence and personality, and somebody who's done
and
the
their
hard
belief
yard,
of what and who they are.
Exactly. So again, that's why it is a very visceral response. But there are many people who willfully do not want to understand this. There's lots of people who are happy to get their information from the tabloid newspaper, where this is framed as skinny jab, quick fix, all that kind of stuff. And like even over here, somebody somewhere has nicknamed tirzepatide the King Kong weight loss drug, which I just think that kind of that use of terminology is just, again, laced with stigma and bias. But again, it's portraying kind of diet culture, but it is an affront to people, particularly, and that has been the case in the diet and fitness kind of industry, particularly. But like we would see it, on the other end of the extreme, you have people who are of a body positivity mind, who are saying, well, weight isn't, the cause of any health issues. And, again, for me, I would say tomorrow, I'm not treating, either of those people, but for the person sitting in front of me, this is how their health is affected. This is what we're treating. I don't care what size you are. I don't care, what your body mass index is. Are you living with excess adiposity? Number one. If so, is it having a negative impact on your health? Yes. Then you deserve treatment. Treatment is either life intervention, pharmacotherapy, surgical therapy. What are you having? What decision do you want to make? And then where do you start your journey? And then how do we support you going forward? But it's still the same issues. But I think, we did a straw poll of some of our kind of online followers about kind of, who do they tell about these medications? Who knows you're on this medication? And I think the majority, 25% said only the doctor and pharmacist knew. That their partner, their closest family didn't know they were on this medication. I gave them a prescription. 50% of people said they would tell their partner, their closest friend, but not their wider group. So that's 75% of people now who are not really talking about this at all. I think 10% said they would tell their wider friend group, and another 15% said they'd scream it from the rooftops. So really, kind of when you break that down, 3/4 of people are not talking about this.
That's
so they're not talking about it.
It's a lot.
And they're not talking about because at some level they feel that this is shameful, or they feel they shouldn't have to do it, or they don't want to do it, or they hear about the narrative that's out there and they don't want people making comments.
Want to be part of it. They don't want to be involved. That stuff.
But it is very much still taboo,
I think that we all probably here can feel like I don't know, just like what Belinda was saying, and I was saying too, I haven't been able to shut up about it. And I think it's because I all I could think was when it happened to me is I have to tell everybody. because I you know what I mean? Like and there weren't a lot of doctors that were talking about it, at least here in the States, right at the time. I just was like, I need you to know it's not your fault. Like, I need you to know, you know? So I just was like, I felt that's why we did this, and that's why we're doing this. But I appreciate it so much, like you collaborating with us, you know, so that we can provide this content in a place that's like, I mean, we'd be able to create a library of content now. And Belinda, for you collaborating on this as well, because now people can hear it from people who have gone to school for this and understand this in a way, and hopefully get to a place of like health and like a self-acceptance, which I think is very important. Like, we don't have to have like the whole body positivity thing doesn't have to be like independent, right, from treating your disease. Like, they are two different things, you know, just like treating your blood pressure, your cholesterol, or anything else. So I'm just so thankful for your time. I really appreciate the knowledge that you've shared with us. Could you tell us where people could find you, so that I can like link them, have them go to your socials? I'll put everything in the show notes. You can go to their website, learn about you, anything that they want to do. And same for you, Belinda, if you guys could both share.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Crotty.
Dr. Crotty, you go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So sorry, my best weight is my clinic in Dublin. I can't think many people are going to commute over from the States to see us. But yeah, I think my best weight on Instagram is our main.
I'm actually number 9 in Ireland, so don't be shocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you? Wow.
I know.
You talk for the podcast.
Yeah, number 9 for podcasts. Yeah, for a health podcast. Yeah.
Isn't that brilliant? There's so many people listening to you then. That's great.
I know.
Great.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And we're getting big in UK as well. Like, they're coming and find like, oh my God, I'm finding you on YouTube. I listened to your podcast. I'm like,
that's brilliant.
You're like those bands that are big in Japan. You're kind of
yeah.
You'll be mobbed when you go to the airport.
Yeah.
Awesome. So so we'll put it in there, because believe it or not, we have lots of people to listen.
That's
so
amazing.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And yours too. So let's make sure we tell them what you're finding.
Yeah, so I am GLP-1 Insights on Instagram and GLP-1 Insights on TikTok as well. I don't go there very often.
We get it. Totally get it.
Yeah.
It might be gone soon anyway. Who knows?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been a lovely conversation. Plus SideZ
Thank
family.
you for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Plus SideZ
Thank you.
We'll come to you every week with more information. You are not alone. It is not your fault. Okay? And just know that you are worthy of care. So, hasta la pasta. We will see you next week.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not 1, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster. Confidence higher. Price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus SideZ Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus SideZ Podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus SideZ Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus SideZ Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.